evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here to the 32nd race of the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals. We're getting ready here to go racing on the mile-and-a-half Kansas Speedway, as it's going to be the fourth playoff race, I should say, of the season. To this point, nobody has locked themselves into the championship battle when we eventually get to Atlanta Motor Speedway. Seth Cole alongside of Lucas Cram. And Lucas, I mean, the pressure's on for a lot of these guys right now because we're currently sitting at only 2 drivers that are in line for being able to be in the championship battle.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a lot of spots open for grabs. Looks like the green flag's going to come out here. Tyler Gary with a huge jump there pretty early on. And you're going to see guys use that apron all night long down that tri-oval. It definitely can help you shortcut the front stretch. And until you get later in the run, those tires get burned off. It's probably the line to use. But definitely Tyler Gary with 5 car length lead already off turn 2.
35 drivers that took the green flag here this evening. A lot of drivers really tight towards the outside wall up of turn 2. One thing that we were told in pre-race was a lot of these guys, for the most part, they're going to be migrating up to that wall, kind of running as high as they possibly can. The inside line mostly going to be for using slide jobs, but I guess clean air kind of makes a difference with you being able to pin down the bottom, because Tyler Gary, up to this point, he's not come off that white line.
Yeah, for sure. You know, if you're out there in clean air, the bottom lane usually will help you save tires for the most part because you're carrying less speed throughout the set in the corner. So definitely should help you save tires a little better and not burning stuff up too early up on that top side. But as you see, Jonathan Oates up here in third, battling with Matthew Zwack. That's Omar Diallo down there, clears him for third off of turn number 4. But if you run that high side, as you can tell right there, you should have a huge run up out of the corner. You can obviously carry the momentum all the way down the straightaway, and now Jonathan Oates looks back on that third position, trying to pass in turn 1.
Zwack in that vicinity there. The NOS number 18 on the top side, running currently in the 6th position. Jonathan Oates in the blue and yellow 73. Right now, those 2 drivers currently the top 2 in the playoff standings. So now they'd be the only drivers in contention at this point in time to battle for the championship in the season finale. We've ended up having 3 races so far where the highest Grand National Series driver has ended up being a driver that's not in the playoffs. So basically, right at the moment, for the drivers that are trying to point their way in, it's Matthew Zwack that everybody's hunting down. Nathan Rabideau 13 points back. Jake Poole and Gary Waterworth, they're 41 points back. So it's almost looking like right now it's a 3-horse race for drivers to get up inside the top 2 in points, and everybody else is just relying on a victory.
And an interesting thing to point out, too, about the schedule during this playoffs, this is the first kind of mile-and-a-half race nestled between 2 road courses, with the Roval being last week, and then you have the street race of Detroit next week, and then it isn't until Atlanta for the championship finale that you actually have another mile-and-a-half. So it's definitely a wide variety of tracks here for these guys to try to, work their way through and lock themselves in the championship finale, as you mentioned.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting too. I mean, maybe safe to say that in a 5-week span, maybe the one track where drivers are in somewhat control of what they're able to do, because we were at Talladega, always a wild card track. You mentioned the Roval last week. We have next week Belle Isle, and then we got Martinsville right after that. I mean, there's a lot of racetracks where you don't necessarily get to control your destiny. It's more in the hands of others.
Yeah, without a doubt. Kenny Brady up here, battling inside a top 5 now, goes 3 wide off turn 2. Really close racing in here pretty early on this event, as now looks like he's actually going to clear both Matthew Zwack and Sean Butler going to turn 3.
Brady in the 97, Matthew Zwack in the 18, Sean Butler down the inside line. Butler definitely one of those drivers that needs a victory to be able to advance his way into the championship picture in about 3 weeks' time. Now that's the battle for around the 5th back to 8th position. Add in the 222 of Alex Kalonix, and there's Malik Ray also on the inside line in the 11 machine trying to catch up. So latter half of the top 10, throw a blanket over him. We just had a lead change as well. Adam Sweet around the top, going to take the position away from Tyler Gary. Gary continuing to run the white line, but we're seeing that outside line, the momentum, especially off of the corners and onto the straightaway, it's paying big dividends.
Absolutely. I'm definitely intrigued to see how this works out over the course of the run. You heard Tyler Gary, the voice shot right there. Just let him go. He's obviously committed to that white line and that kind of bottom groove to save his tires. And it's going to be interesting to follow Adam Sweet and see how well he can conserve his tires up there on that top side, and whether or not it'll pay off for him at the end of the run, or if he's just kind of running away with it right now.
99 laps may not seem like much for people, but when you consider the fact what you just brought up, the tire wear, it's going to be huge here today, especially with the fact that if you look at our weather conditions, ambient temperature 90 degrees, but we're in the triple digits, 111 degrees, daytime conditions just beating down on this racetrack. These tires are going to blister, the grip is going to go away in a hurry, and more than likely these drivers, maybe even at this point, are screaming for grip.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Sean Butler looks like he just cleared at the 222 of Alex Kalanick, and now dives to the inside of Jonathan Oates. And as you mentioned from the start, the only way you're going to really run the bottom is if you can complete the pass. And right there off turn number 4, battling for that 5th position, you just can't quite slide up. And that's probably one of the most frustrating things as a driver, trying to pass somebody who's kind of committed to run the top side is just, barely having someone to hang on your quarter panel, and it's just tough to get your car, clear up there and keep the momentum up. As now you see, he will be able to do that pretty early on here. Jonathan Oates is a huge run. He'll probably just fall back in line into turn 3.
You see there our shot from the infield camera looking towards the back straight. You could just see how the momentum on the top side gains you 2, 3, 4 miles per hour over the driver you're trying to reel in. Oates could not complete the pass there to the inside of Sean Butler. Kalanick now gets to his inside. And look at Malik Ray using the apron there on the front straightaway, which is legal. It is inbounds. Tried to take them 3 wide for the 6th position.
Yeah, already up for the 12th position, and I believe he probably saved his tires a little bit earlier there in the start of that run. Now 10 laps in, he's going to be a little more aggressive and try to dice his way back to the top 5.
Stewart in the 4, just back there. Ended up not seeing him in the car last week at the Roval. That was Spencer Ray that did the driving duties, and Nate Stewart now trying to see if he can possibly win his way into the championship battle. At this point in time, it has to be a win-and-you're-in situation for him, since with missing last week, he fell too far down the point stands to be able to really get his way back up into the top 2. Of course, a former winner of the season as well, winning the wild card race at Daytona, had all of that momentum coming into the playoffs, and knocking on the door of the top 10. Jordan Worth just up ahead of him as the car he's got to pass.
Yeah, and it's very intriguing to see how these guys kind of picking their own lane. You see a lot of guys down the bottom, a lot of guys up against the wall, and I think unless they're side by side with somebody kind of pinching them down, the middle is just no man's land pretty much. So really intriguing to see, though, how these guys have all kind of decided on what kind of lines they feel comfortable running after practice earlier, and they're all kind of making them all work pretty evenly, honestly, right now. There's no real super advantage, it seems like, at least at the moment at this point in the race. And Malik Ray there took a through wide up the middle around Jonathan Oates and Matthew Zwack to get into the 6th position. Now he's trying to chase down Sean Butler for that top 5.
All starting to get themselves situated single file now. The top 4 have all been able to pull away and have anywhere from 2 to 5 tenths between them. Sweet, Gary, Diallo, and Brady, that top 4 right now. Of course, Kenny Brady coming off the momentum of that dominating victory last week at the Charlotte Roval, trying to go 2 for 2 here in 2 weeks. Looks like Sean Butler in control of 5th, Malik Ray behind him in 6th, Kalanick, Zwack, Oates, Worth, and Stewart all behind him as well. A driver that's not that far back behind those guys making his return in the 0-2 for Speed Incorporated. Cosmin Ishinoshu, the Reese's colors, right behind Brent Pancari, our Talladega winner. And just behind Cosmin, you've got our winner from Talladega, Lane Tidwell, who of course was the recipient of the Justin Malello EOL in the closing stages of that one to pick up his first FTF Grand National Series victory.
Up front here, Tyler Gary has kind of run back down Adam Sweet. And I noticed there last time through 3 and 4, he attempted the top side, but now he's kind of gone back down the bottom, and it seems to be paying off for him. Like I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, just run the high side. I think I got a little shorter tires a lot easier. And now Tyler Gary pulls the inside of the number 55 machine to turn 1 for the race lead.
Heading on board with Gary, you can see very little hand motion there with the wheel, trying to hold it as steady as possible, keep the momentum, keep the speed through the corner, does not get the speed off exit, and that's going to allow Sweet to put him in his rearview mirror, at least for the time being. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if more and more drivers take a note of that and maybe start backing up their corners, running that inside line the later the run goes on. Look at here, as they were side by side, that brought Umar Diallo into the mix. It's now a 3-man fight for the top position.
Yeah, Omar's moving bottom lane as well as Tyler Gary slides right up in front of Adam Sweet right there, takes the race lead with command, and he's going to now run that high side to defend. And that was a really aggressive move on lap 17, but definitely paid off for him.
I don't know if he has a spotter that cleared him or if he cleared himself, but man, that was close. The back bumper of the 026 to the front bumper of Adam Sweet. That kind of checks Sweet up a little bit too, which now allows Umar Diallo to take advantage. He's going to slot into second place. So in the matter of 2 laps, Adam Sweet goes from the top spot now back to third.
It's all ever retired too. You can see every time it comes out of the corners compared to the 2 cars who just got around him right there. Running that high side, just carrying more speed and having a longer distance to go around the racetrack, it overheats the right rear tire a lot more. So if your car is kind of handling tight, you can move up there and actually help your handling the car. But at the start of the run, it usually just causes that right rear to get too overheated, and usually it's too difficult to overcome that, unfortunately. So he's going to fall back to third here. And top 10 here, pretty spread out for the most part, but Omar Diallo is not letting Gary get away with the race lead.
Really impressive, the racing we're seeing here. Lots of battling for position all the way through the top 10. It's actually battling all the way through the top 20. A lot of positions have been changing here in the last 10 laps or so, but they've been able to make these passes clean. Not surprising, though, because if you go back to the last mile-and-a-half track we were at in the opener for the playoffs at Las Vegas, the caution flag flew only 1 time. So these guys might have had to have come into tonight's Kansas race possibly planning on coming to pit road under green flag conditions. I gotta wonder with just how slick the racetrack itself is and how high these tire temps are going to be, how difficult is it going to be getting onto pit road and getting these things woed up, hoping that the brakes take to get you down to pit road speed.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely pretty difficult. At Kansas, it's probably one of the, I guess, intermediate tracks as far as pit road entry. It's not too difficult, but it definitely can get you if you're not careful. So, yeah, like you mentioned, these tires are going to be screaming for grip at the end of this run. And so if we get ready for pit stops, obviously, it's going to be pretty difficult to get down onto that flat part, because the apron transition here is probably one of the worst things with being on the pit road. The banking isn't too high here compared to some other tracks, but compared to like Atlanta and tracks like that, there's absolutely no banking on that apron. So it's going to be a heavy transition to kind of get your car turned onto, and it could be pretty easy to wheel hop and spin the car down on a pit road. So definitely be careful. And like you mentioned, green flag races is obviously really tricky to make sure you don't get any mistakes whatsoever during the green flag pit cycle.
Well, when Tyler Gary was trying to make the pass on Adam Sweet, he was on the bottom. Sweet went to the top. Now that Tyler Gary's out in front, he jumps to the outside line. Oh, we got a car coming to pit road. Yes, it is. That's Kenny Brady in the 97. But is this scheduled? Because I'm seeing some damage around the right front.
Yeah, I was just looking. He came off turn 4 a couple laps ago and absolutely tank slapped the outside retaining wall, and he caught the right rear on the safety barrier and it hooked the front end into the wall, and he's got a lot of damage on the right side of the number 97 machine.
And I believe as he came down pit road, I think he just took the left-hand turn to the garage. Tough break there for last week's winner, Kenny Brady. Damage on his machine, and he's looks like he's taken himself out of this race. He'll be finishing back in the 35th position. So an early exit for last week's winner. Battles on for third. The Toyota of Malik Ray to the inside of the Chevrolet of Adam Sweet.
Yeah, running that high side, you see Adam Sweet get really free right there, just absolutely sawing on the wheel, trying to keep it under control and doing a nice job, making sure obviously he doesn't spin that car out, but definitely a bit of a handful for him right now.
How much of a handful is it when you're running in somebody's draft? I mean, we've already seen a lot of these drivers kind of pushing up towards the outside wall, especially off of turn number 2, almost brushing that safer barrier. With the tire temps, with the track conditions, no doubt these guys have got to be feeling that aero tightness.
Yeah, for sure. And more than anything, probably it's the just the sight lines. It's really impossible to see as you see. I'm just really get loose right there, especially crossing over those seams here. It's really easy to get the car sideways. But yeah, more than anything, it's just those sight lines. Even into turn 1, with the safety barrier kind of sticking out like that, it's really easy to be up close to somebody's rear bumper and just not have a visual on the corner and kind of make a mistake without realizing it until it's too late. So up front there, Omar Diallo is definitely pressuring Tyler Gary here for the race lead, and they're having a good battle up here.
Indeed, Diallo continuing to try and run a different line to Tyler Gary. Gary now down to the bottom. Diallo going to run about a half groove, maybe a groove higher through the middle. Gets a nice exit, and he'll peel to the inside. Gets the left rear quarter panel. Let's see if he can complete the pass here into 3 and 4. Yeah, we were told that the slide job could be a thing here today, and there it is. Crossover for Gary, though, out of 4.
Yeah, Gary definitely cut a break right there. Knew we're only a quarter way through this race, and there's definitely no point turning both those cars up because A-Team is a little optimistic there with that slide. Oh, it was contact in turn 1.
And man, that's going to send him up, and he is going to brush the wall just the least little bit. That could have been a lot worse. Kansas is one of those tracks you get up into that safer barrier, and it kind of hugs you in. It doesn't want to let you go, loses you a ton of momentum. He just barely brushed that outside wall, so he's going to at least keep the 0.26 of Gary within striking distance, and actually keep the distance between himself and Malik Ray pretty sizable as well.
Yeah, it was a really good catch, and luckily it looks like both of those race cars aren't too badly damaged. Obviously, the Xfinity cars are a little more tolerant to some contact with the composite bodies, and luckily it looks like both of those cars should be in good shape for us to run here. But I have to wonder if Tyler expected Omar to run up against the fence like he had been to get to him, and then he was expecting to run the middle and just, record fourth.
Rick! That's Sean Butler and Adam Sweet. Sweet's going to spin down towards the inside wall. That was the battle we were just watching for the 4th position. And why that was important, I was just about to bring up with Sean Butler. If he completed that pass, he was going to be the highest Grand National Series driver on track, which would have put him in the air quotes win position to advance into the championship battle. And just like that, that whole situation just changed.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate. And looking back at the replay, it looks like the 55 running against the fence got a little free, and then looks like it may have been a good bit of net code in between them. Unfortunately, just hooked Sean Butler up the hill. Nothing any of those guys could have done right there.
Sean Butler, nice job of saving that race car, but you got to wonder what the extent of the damage is to the right side of his machine, especially that right rear. You can see a buckle on the hood of the 55. Obviously, he would have some damage on more than likely both sides. The safer barrier doing the damage to the right side, and the 32 of Sean Butler, the damage there to the left side. You can actually see some damage, especially back around that right rear wheel well. Washing out for the first time tonight on lap 26, and wow, what a shocker. Everyone's coming to pit road. Who'd have thought?
Yeah, for sure. Entire field's going to be really scattered here to getting their pit boxes, so it'll be interesting to see as you see Malik Ray almost gallop right there.
Smoke back there. Drivers getting on the brakes. It's kind of stacked up coming on to pit road, trying not to run each other over. Cosmin Ishinoshu, is this a gas and go for the 0-2?
Might have missed his box, honestly.
And I think you're right. Yeah, I'm not seeing any time in his box on the telemetry we've got here. Malik Ray with a fast pit stop, but Tyler Gary's going to win the battle. Ray out in second, third for Swack, and then 3 wide between Oates, Worth, and Stewart. I think it was Oates that was able to come off pit road in the 4th position. As everybody else coming out here. Now, Jake Poulin decided to stay out an extra lap. We're more than likely going to see him come down pit road this next time. This is kind of classic Jake Poulin. Stays out, gets the bonus point for a lap led, and comes down the second time. And we'll probably see Cosmin Ishinoshu coming down this time as well to get into his pit box. So Tyler Gary should be the race leader when we go back green. So just to kind of remind everybody how the system works here for the FTF playoffs. If you are the highest running Grand National Series points paying driver, you will get, and they put this in air quotes, the win. So let's say, for instance, Matthew Zwack, Jonathan Oates, Nate Stewart, Brent Pancari. If any of those drivers finish behind Gary, Ray, those are drivers that are not battling for points. They would theoretically get the win as a playoff driver, and it would lock them into the season finale championship battle at Atlanta. But I noticed Jordan Worth up here in the 4th position. He played spoiler at Las Vegas when he finished second place to Brian Mercurio. Since he was the highest Grand National Series points paying driver, he basically took all the other playoff contenders out of contention to be able to get that air quotes win. And up to this point, nobody has been able to win their way into the season finale, as you see them going around the choose cone there, picking their lanes off of turn 2.
Has been pretty exciting to see if somebody can get up there. Obviously, Tyler Gary and all these guys up here kind of defending it from the rest of them. Matthew Zwack, he just chose the outside lane there and gained a couple spots out of it. He was running the 3rd. Now he's essentially lined up in 2nd place up there, front row. So it's gonna be exciting to see these restarts at this racetrack. It should be pretty even for both the bottom and top lane, I'd have to assume, with the nature of this racetrack. So I'm excited to see how these outside guys can kind of pinch and get a good run off turn 2.
It's going to be interesting as well to watch some of these guys that are not in the top 2 in the point stands and how aggressive they're going to be the closer we get to the end of this race. Because again, you got Kansas this week, you've got Belle Isle and Martinsville in the next 2 weeks to determine who's going to battle for the championship. And I think a lot of drivers that were kind of the win and you're in type of scenario, they were looking at this specific track as their golden opportunity.
Yeah, without a doubt. And obviously, mile and a half is probably the most experience these guys have, most track experience these guys have. So compared to those other 2 races where there'll be slightly wild card events, and obviously the road winner is going to come out next week, it's definitely going to be exciting to see, if they can capitalize on it and how aggressive will be in this race.
I wonder too with Belle Isle, I mean, this league does not run with faster pairs. There's very little room for error where you don't come away with some pretty extensive damage at Belle Isle. So be a really good one next week as we're watching the battle for 5th place. Parker White going to complete the pass around Nate Stewart. It's the highest we've seen Parker White all night long, and actually a little bit surprised it's taken him this long to work his way up to the front. He did start all the way back in the 24th position, but his lap times in practice looked really, really good. So I think that might be someone that we kind of have to keep an eye on here in the closing stages to maybe have a shot at winning tonight's event.
Yeah, he probably started that run just kind of conserving tires, expecting it to go green the whole way. And obviously, we don't have caution, speaking of.
And it looks like it's going to be Matt Taylor
and
Andy Mark. Oh, it's a big wreck, actually. Someone just pounded the wall back there off of turn 2. Wets, Cosmonish, and No Shoes back in this. I think it was Wets was the car that clobbered the outside safer barrier. Marcus Ciasco in the 88 was also collected up in that. About 5-6 cars in 2 different incidents, it looked like, from the middle of 1 and 2 over close to the exit of turn 2, bringing out the second caution of the evening. And that's the other thing, too. We ended up having that long green flag run. The field got themselves pretty well spaced out. Now they're all back up together trying to get everything they can before they get spaced out once more. I had to think that more than likely we were going to see another caution come out with everybody in close proximity.
Yeah, without a doubt, that definitely kind of scattered his chain reaction. When the 88 got turned around to turn 1 after making contact with it looks like the 135 machine, everybody kind of scattered trying to avoid him after he bounced off the wall. And unfortunately, the last car in that group was Chris Wetz, as you mentioned, and he got into him and actually flipped the 88 machine up and over on the apron right there. That was pretty crazy.
Well, unfortunate there is, looks like Marcus Ciasco was dealing with connection problems and reappeared right beside the car you described there, sending him up and into the wall and nowhere for those other guys to go. Saw Chris Wetz in the 71 take that huge hit into the outside wall. Now, I believe that none of our playoff contenders were involved in that incident, so fortunate in that regard. But yeah, you see Wetz, he gets the 88 and up into the wall he goes. We'll take a look at Taylor and others, how they were collected up. And interesting the fact that that little mistake for Cosmonish Oshu, missing his stall on pit road under that first caution flag, put him all the way back here in traffic. And next thing you know, he gets damage in this.
Yeah, I was about to mention Jake Poland, you mentioned earlier. He stayed up to lead that lap, and he had a heck of a miss right there, avoiding both those cars who got turned around on the apron right in front of him. And obviously, yeah, Cosman just unfortunately was right there and had nowhere to go and got in the back of him.
So it looks like officially the drivers that were involved in this one would be Cosmonish Oshu, Chris Wetz, Matt Taylor, Andy Margot, Justin Terpstra, and Marcus Ciasco. Ciasco has taken his car back to the garage area. We only ran about 3-4 laps under green flag conditions there, so very few drivers selecting to come down pit road, mostly those drivers that had to come down pit road to get some damage repaired. We had, I believe, 24 drivers that stayed out and did not come down for service.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to keep the track position here. It looks like we're going to have probably to the green here, and obviously that fuel window is around 40 laps, so we're still a good 25 laps out of that window. So if we get another caution here, I'd say after probably like a 5 to 10 lap-ish run, we might see a bit of a split strategy with the extra laps from this run added on, but definitely interested to see how that strategy plays out if we do another yellow.
I believe we only had 23 drivers take time in tonight's event. The other 12 drivers electing to kind of let the grid set them where it may. But a lot of drivers have done a good job of picking up spots here in the first third of this race. 19 spots up from his 24th starting position, Parker White. Will Klein is up to the 8th position from his 25th starting spots. That's a gain of 17 positions. And David Cabrera back in the 18th spot, but he nearly started shotgun on the field in 33rd. He's up 15 positions. So a lot of drivers have kind of proven, at least on the long run and with strategy under that first caution, that track position can definitely be gained.
Yeah, without a doubt. And obviously, this guy's trying to fit the field. A lot of guys up front, without Gary, and guys like them, they might kind of think they have the field covered to an extent. And then, Parker White and all those guys kind of play spoiler and can kind of show them what they have late when they're probably least expecting it. So definitely could be an advantage. And you can kind of see how everybody else is running the track and maybe even learn a thing or two back there.
I believe of the drivers that are playoff contenders, only 2 did not take the green flag here tonight. Tristan Hagenstein and Evan Rice. Again, though, the way that the whole playoff system works here for the Grand National Series, you don't necessarily have to show up each week to have a shot of advancing your way into the playoff finale with a chance for the championship. Another driver, or another car, I should say, notably missing here tonight, that'd be the 62. Normally see either Blake Reynolds, he was the driver of the car last week, or Brian McCurry, who I'm pretty certain would have been the driver to pilot it here tonight since he piloted that Toyota in the last mile-and-a-half track. But that car's not in the field here this evening. And remember, that was a car and a team that was dominating the owner standings. Now, I believe they are still leading the team standings. But when the playoffs began, it kind of reformatted that whole system as well. So they may be falling down a little bit in the owner standings, but they're going to lose some points here as well tonight with not having a driver piloting that machine here at Kansas.
Interesting call right there with Tyler Gary. He chose the outside lane in the restart, and maybe trying that out, maybe for later in the race, just in case he gets forced up there in the outside lane. And definitely didn't seem to hurt him on the initial jump. He's out to 3-car length leader here over Matthew Zwack.
Matthew Zwack, obviously at this point in time, very consistent during the playoffs, up inside the top 2 in the point standings, 13 points back to his nearest competitor, Nathan Rabideau. And right now, Rabideau back in the 11th spot, so not a sense of urgency for Matthew Zwack, but at the same time, if you're Matthew Zwack, you want to find victory lane for the first time, pick up your first career victory. So if it's right there in front of you, no doubt he's going to go for it.
For sure, and he definitely, last mile and a half race, as you mentioned earlier, at Las Vegas in the playoff opener, he was up front. He tried the alternate strategy of short pitting and did give him the lead for a good bit. Fortunately, never really caught a caution to help him out and keep that track position. But he was up front all race. I believe he finished just outside the top 5, if not in the top 5, and definitely has proven that he's a good contender here in his mile and a halves and trying to be super consistent at it.
Finished in the 4th position at Las Vegas. Another driver that finished well just behind him, Jordan Worth, was the runner-up at the Las Vegas race. So looking for back-to-back top 5s in mile-and-a-half races for him. And look at all these guys using oh, no, that's Jonathan Oates. That's the points leader, and he's going to get clobbered by, I believe that was the 14 of Casey Nemitz.
Man, so many cars piled in right there. Robert Dorman, it looks like Madam Sweet. Unfortunately, get turned right in the middle of the tri-oval and bounced off the retaining wall, and everybody gets collected in that.
About 3 or 4 drivers try the apron there, and they were almost 3 wide on the apron. I mean, that's risky enough in and of itself, and big hit there for Jonathan Oates, the points leader coming to this one. Now, Oates came into this race, I believe, 16 points ahead of Matthew Zwack and 42 points ahead of Nathan Rabideau. So as of right now, he's got a cushion to be able to work with. See what happened to him. Nate Stewart is the car behind him. There's the 95 up ahead. Parker White, he goes to the apron. Oates goes to the apron. Stewart goes to the apron. There's the hook.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting place to have that contact happen. It looked like 73 was just cutting down on the apron and following the 95 machine. Maybe defending a little bit there on Nate Stewart, but I'm not sure if there's anything that happened prior to that, but it looked like Nate Stewart just didn't like it on my break there for sure.
Got the notes up there on the top side. Robert Dorman, Adam Sweet not able to get on the brakes as they hit him. You saw 73 leaving the scene with the car smoking. That's definitely a bad sign in every respect. And take a look here at some of those other drivers that were collected up in that hit the 14 of Casey Nemitz. Mar Diallo, who was up inside the top 3, I do believe, was one of the drivers that tagged the 14.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was like kind of one car at a time just got hit, and that caused another chain reaction. And as soon as the 14 machine just got into him, there was nowhere for Omar to go, and he got right in the back of him, and definitely a lot of heavy nose damage on that number 18 machine.
See, Nemitz comes to a stop, but he was able, it looks like, to... Well, I thought he drove his car back, but he actually took a tow. Some drivers that elected to come down pit lane, but the garage area all of a sudden is starting to fill up. We went about, 30 laps without a caution, and just like that, 4 drivers now out of the race. Robert Dorman, Umar Diallo, joining Marcus Siasco and Kenny Brady in the garage area. Jonathan Oates still on pit road. Going to be a long, lengthy stay for him. Obviously, with that engine damage, Andy Margot might possibly be the same. He's on pit road getting some damage repaired. Adam Sweet, a lot of front-end damage on his car, and Casey Nemitz, who was unable to drive back to pit road. He is on pit lane. Long stay for him also. So at this point in time, we might have about 26 drivers that would have a shot at this victory, and all 26 of those drivers currently scored on the lead lap.
You mentioned it, cautions breed cautions. These guys are definitely getting pretty aggressive on these restarts and not holding anything back for sure.
You also consider the fact, too, I mean, this might possibly be one of the shorter races on the season. Las Vegas was 100 laps, this one 99 laps. When you kind of think about that kind of distance, you kind of think of a sprint, really. Normally you end up going into the 150 range usually for mile-and-a-half track races. So these guys might have a sense of urgency the closer we get to the end of this race of having to pick up those spots and maybe put their car in a situation that they're not all that comfortable with.
Yeah, it might be kind of that theory that grocery stores use where they only sell it for $9.99, and seeing the 99 laps instead of 100, that definitely can kind of maybe throw you off your mindset a little bit, and the urgency for sure, like you mentioned. And already coming up close to halfway here in just about 5 laps or so. It's getting down to it, and obviously with the green flag pit stops now kind of out of the range, or I guess we still could get them without a caution for the rest of the race, but kind of getting this cycle of aggression, and then when you add on the fact that you keep having cautions, there's even more need for urgency and aggression because you feel like you can't make up spots over a course of a run. So it's gonna be interesting to see how these guys kind of play it out. If the intensity picks up even more, or some guys kind of just figure they need to be calming down a little bit and get more of a group and just kind of run green the rest of the way. So not really sure how this is going to play out, but definitely a little bit of a mess right now.
I want to thank iRacing for the feature they have where the caution cones and the commitment cones respawn where they need to be after they've been hit, because if that weren't the case, thanks to Zachary Thornton, these guys wouldn't have a commitment cone to be able to choose their lanes this next time coming around out of turn number 2. But the light's out atop the pace cars, so Tyler Gary will be choosing the line he wants to restart at. Everybody else will be lining up accordingly off of turn number 2. Looks like right now we have 27 drivers that are going to be on the lead lap when we go back green. Jake Poulin will be the last of those. And keep an eye on some of these guys up here that are in that winning you're in scenario situation. Nate Stewart's going to restart in 4th. Sean Butler's back up here. He's in 8th. Lucas Palesso currently in the 10th position. Gary Waterworth just outside the top 10 in 15th. And Andrew Schwartz is back there in 17th place. We haven't really mentioned him here tonight, and that's kind of been a good thing. He's been staying out of trouble, and keep an eye on him. He might be up here before this is all over. All of these drivers need a victory to be able to lock themselves into the championship battle at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Tyler Gary here once again chose the top side, and I saw a lot more guys kind of choose that high side. That choose cone is really fun to watch here in this league. Matthew Swack, he missed a gear, I believe, on the restart. Gonna get shoved on the apron.
He's way down to the inside to let the drivers behind him go on by, but I think that checked up Nate Stewart so much that he might be okay. Zwack's going to tuck into the 3rd spot side by side with Stewart. Worth around the top side moves to 2nd behind the race leader Tyler Gary off of 2.
Yeah, good move there by Zwack. Instantly realized he had barely missed a shift there and pulled down the apron, and luckily Nate Stewart had a good reflexes there to cut out of the outside of him and get out of his way, and definitely could have been catastrophe there inside the top 5. But now he's going to rebound, actually get back around. Nate Stewart is going to run 3rd here off turn number 4.
Nate Stewart leaves the bottom open. Malik Ray is going to stick his nose in there. 3 Toyota Supras battling out. As a matter of fact, Toyota sweeping the top 5 at this point in time. The first non-Toyota is that Ford of Sean Butler, now up to 6th place. And Ocean Walsh right there in the 37 has now made an appearance up near close to the top 5. A guy that had a great run going last week at the Charlotte Roval.
Another name we haven't really mentioned too much, and now a blaster on the outside, Nate Stewart there in turns 3 and 4. But once again, just as we saw Adam Sweet earlier in the race, using that high side definitely going to help you gain a lot of positions here. I'm curious to think if maybe he believes that there's going to be another yellow here with all the cautions we've had recently, and it's kind of go time for him right now. But he's going to go on the outside of Malik Ray here. A good, huge run here off the turn before, too, excuse me.
3 wide back there around the 13th, 14th, 15th position with Andrew Schwartz, Nathan Rabideau. They split Cosmin Ishinoshu. Ishinoshu was the one that elected to back out of that situation as they head into turn number 1. Ocean Walsh going to clear Malik Ray, move him up to 4th. Ray back to 5th. Now look at the battling just inside of the top 10. Alex Kalonix has his hands full with David Cabrera. Lane Tidwell right there. Lucas Palesel, Zach Hudson in this mix. Throw a blanket over about 6-7 cars from the latter half of the top 10 to the completion of the top 15.
And it's interesting to point out here as well, it looks like a lot more guys are kind of running that bottom groove all the way around. They kind of learned in that first run, I believe. And most of them believe that bottom groove is the way to go. You see only a couple cars up there running against the outside or retaining the wall. And it definitely, like I mentioned earlier, can definitely help you gain some positions. But I think a lot of guys have kind of realized the situation with the tire wear and how much it can actually hurt you at the end of the run. So definitely a difference in strategies here. Some guys maybe believing that they can get more now and then hope that catch another caution. And then some other guys will set themselves up for the end of this run.
David Cabrera, you see there on the top side. He's taking the longer way around, but that last time by, he was the second fastest driver inside of the top 10, only to leader Tyler Gary. So he has definitely found something here, and he is taking that car towards the front. So too is a fellow Ford Mustang, Ocean Walsh. He's going to go around Matthew Zwack, move the 37 up to P3. He's now hunting the top 2.
Bit of a top 5 breakaway here behind Malik Ray. It looks like Nate Stewart up there running on the high side of Sean Butler. Back around the inside, looks like Nate Stewart actually has some nose damage. I'm not quite sure where that came from, if it was the restart. I didn't really notice that before, to be honest. But definitely a bit of a breakaway. Not sure if that damage is hurting him or not, but definitely a pack back here. Looks like they're going to be 2 and 3 wide, back just outside the top 10.
Justin Malello side by side with David Cabrera. Ooh, pushes up a little bit there off of turn 4. Malello, of course, trying to back into form after that win was taken away from him at Talladega. He led them back to the checkers, but he made the pass below the double yellow line, got EOL. Right now, he's now in the 8th position, going to tuck up in front of the 138, I should say. And now Lane Tidwell, the driver who was the beneficiary of Malello's EOL, he's going to reel in these two, make it a 3-man fight for the 8th position. Nathan Rabideau also starting to close in 3rd in the playoff standings.
David Cabrera, like I mentioned earlier, I haven't really mentioned most of the night. He's been up here making some moves, getting really dicey there. He got a good run off of turn number 2, and Joseph Malello cut down the inside very quick, and unfortunately it looks like he got a little free and is kind of getting those positions back up, but definitely racing pretty aggressively up here, and obviously now inside top 10 is going for it.
I see a lot of drivers high, wide, and handsome, especially there in turn 1. Cabrera has been pretty religiously up there for the last 5 to 10 laps. Seeing Alex Kalonix migrating up there as well. Look at the 222 get a big run here off of turn 4. Ooh, somebody back there. Was that Thornton or the car behind him? Possibly Dalton Cowden almost got the wall off the final corner.
Yeah, David Cabrera about tied the right rear off the safety barrier right there. He may have actually barely scraped it, but somehow managed to keep that thing straight. And definitely not giving anything up here as they go 3 wide here off turn number 2. David Cabrera, a huge run on the outside. Looks like he might get around both these guys entering turn 3.
I've seen a couple of drivers kind of barely scrape that outside safer barrier. Cast memory back to Umar Diallo early on in this one. I mean, even that slight little bit of contact, do you feel that in the race car, or is it kind of a non-factor?
Yeah, it definitely can be pretty, kind of catch you off guard. A lot of times you'll, get free up out of the corner, especially around that high side, and you kind of put wheel into it, expecting to try to save it and put them back to the right. And then if you barely catch that right rear in the wall as it's kind of hung out sideways right there, it hooks the front end even further into the wall because you're, putting wheel in it trying to correct it. So you definitely be careful with that and not too aggressive because you can definitely feel it catch sometimes and it'll help straighten you out in most cases, but it can definitely catch you off guard and really damage your car, obviously. So you gotta be really careful with that. Nice guys are obviously doing a really good job kind of understanding that and not getting too close to it, at least intentionally.
Tyler Gary's best finish so far this season, second place, not running for Grand National Series points, but I mean, you wouldn't think it, but he's actually out for a little bit of redemption here today as well, because the last mile-and-a-half track we were at, Las Vegas Motor Speedway, he finished in the 5th position after starting on pole and leading a race-high 24 laps. Was unable to close out the deal. Here tonight, he'd like to be able to change that story. He started on pole. He's been out in front most of the night. He wants to make sure he closes out the deal with 44 to go.
Absolutely. While the surfaces between this and Vegas are completely different, obviously it's another 1.5 mile tri-oval and has a lot of similar characteristics. Definitely the grooves, the bumps are a lot smoother here. There's no real wore out surface or no real severe bumps for the most part around this racetrack. But the similarities of kind of running the bottom line and running the top line are fairly similar in most cases. And obviously him and Jordan Worth, they both ran up front all race long there at Las Vegas, and both proving that works the same here at Kansas.
All the guys up inside the top 10 have got themselves pretty well spaced out. This is where the Hornets' nest is from about 10th position on back. Dalton Cowden, Zach Hudson, Lucas Palesel, David Cabrera, Alex Kolonix, Parker White. They are all in this mayhem, and the reason I'm kind of focusing on these guys is because they are now 28 laps on their tires, and remember, our first caution of the evening came out 28 laps into the run.
Yeah, still 3 wide here. Really tight racing here through the middle of this pack. It looks like, the 70 right there. Zach Hudson about got on the 040 machine. Good catch by him right there to stay off of him. And now Parker White sees the opportunity to go on the outside of him into turn number 1.
What kind of a helpless feeling? I mean, I know at a super speedway you're stuck in the middle. It's called the sucker hole. You're going to the back, but how much of a helpless feeling that you're taking 3 wide on these straightaways?
Yeah, it's quite scary, and it's definitely really scary in the corners. That seam, it's very easy when you're in the middle lane to kind of cross over the rear tire, and it just spins your car out without much warning. So these guys are doing a really good job, and obviously understanding that and not getting too much on it. As you see Zach Hutton pinch right there, contact, somehow kept it straight.
And oh man, that was a lot of contact off of turn 4. More than likely, under normal circumstances, you'd think the 84 was going to get hooked in the right rear quarter panel and up into the outside wall, but they managed to keep it together. We stay under the green. Got a couple of playoff drivers now that are trying the outside line. Andrew Schwartz, the 67, just behind David Cabrera, and behind him you got our Talladega winner, Brent Pancari. These guys trying to get up there inside of the top 10. You've also got Lucas Palesel in this mix, so a lot of your playoff contenders all in close proximity to each other.
Yeah, definitely probably making it even more nerve-wracking. These guys obviously have a lot to race for and racing for position up side of the top 15 here. Unfortunately, David Cabrera, as mentioned earlier, running up there on about an 8th position, running that high side, was probably the most aggressive driver up on the high side we saw. And unfortunately for him, he did not catch the caution he was looking for. Looks like he's going to take it 3 wider here off turn number 2. Still racing really hard back here.
Midway battle for second place. Ocean Walsh has caught Jordan Worth. He's brought Malik Ray along with him. This battle taking place only half a second behind the race leader. There you see Tyler Gary in the same shot. Matthew Zwack would like these guys to continue to race. He could make it a 4-man fight for that runner-up position. And just behind him, got a good battle going on. The latter half of the top 10, Nathan Rabideau and Nate Stewart. So a couple of Nates mixing it up for P6. Will Klein also in the vicinity. A driver that had to start towards the rear of the field. 25th starting position for the 048.
Malik Ray right there getting clear of Ocean Walsh. And Ocean Walsh, another one of those guys, as we see once again here in 3 and 4, still rubbing that high side. And unfortunately for him, he's not caught the caution he's looking for. He's definitely done a pretty decent job compared to what we've seen most of the night so far of running that high side and saving his tires. But it seems like so far the way this is playing out, where the grooves are at the moment at least, that the high side just kind of kills your tires no matter how smooth you are with it. So definitely it can be a huge disadvantage, but in order to make fast, this is kind of the place to go. So it's kind of a bit of a balancing act right now. And under green, it looks like he's going to kind of run by himself here and hopefully just hang on.
Right now, we are into, I believe, we're nearing our longest green flag run of the evening. One thing I'm going to say, though, don't go away, because this race could have late race fireworks. Why do I say that? Well, going back to last time out's race at Las Vegas, our last mile-and-a-half track, the top 3 finishers of that race all ran their fastest lap on laps 73 to 74, 3/4 of the way through the race. So that gives you an idea that these guys might be mixing it up here and seeing some late race restarts before we see that checkered flag.
Yeah, for sure. And Kansas is pretty notorious for some reason of having overtime finishes. And I've already seen some of these guys get pretty aggressive early on, even during that first green flag run, and to make some contact. And cause some yellows. So Tyler Gary obviously did a nice job just maintaining this 3/4 of a second lead right now over Malik Ray, but definitely in the back of his mind, he probably knows that. And you got to keep in mind too, we're getting closer to the pit stops here. On a green, probably going to split the run up in half here in probably about 5 to 10 laps, I'd have to assume. And obviously that's the most notorious point of the run to have a caution, is when some guys pit early and you kind of have that shake up of the field with guys still out there in old tires running a lot slower than the guys in freshies.
Not only that, but I would think that especially with the type of race we've got here with the heavy tire, where it makes the decision of when to come to pit road even more difficult. You come to pit road early, yeah, you're going to get that fresh rubber, you're going to lay down those good lap times, and if everything cycles around, yeah, then you're going to be in good shape. But there's always that possibility everything doesn't cycle around, that we end up having a caution. Next thing you know, you're trapped a lap down, and you have to make all those positions back, maybe with a wave around.
Yeah, for sure. Adam Sweet right there running around, still a lot of damage. He actually was pulling off onto the apron trying to get everybody's way, and Alex Klonix about got on the back right there. That was really, really close, and he's going to pull all the way off the apron and actually pull it behind the wall. So tough break for him right there. Obviously, probably just giving up at this point with that pretty tore up race car. But these guys definitely still not giving an inch out here, all battling for position, top and high side.
Another slow car up ahead for the race leader, Tyler Gary, to deal with, I believe, is the 88, I think, of Matt Taylor, who is right now the last car on the lead lap in the 26th position, and indeed it is. So we'll see if Tyler Gary can make quick work of him. Battling right now is going on around the 9th, 10th position. That's where Dalton Cowden, Pankari, Sean Butler, or Adrian Schwartz rather, they are all in close proximity. Nate Stewart also in this mix as well. Closing in on 30 laps to go here at Kansas, and right now we are still in the position where if everyone finishes where they currently are, there would be no driver locking themselves into the championship battle at Atlanta through a victory, with Jordan Worth being the highest points-paying Grand National Series driver in 3rd place.
Really close car right there between Sean Butler and Nate Stewart about a lap ago off turn before. It looked like Sean Butler trying to take away that 9th position from Nate Stewart, lost the nose, and if it didn't make contact, it was extremely close, and they both reacted to it there over the voice chat, but still right in between them now. Dalton Cowden and Brett Punkarari just barely got around him, and now they're trying to get around Nate Stewart. Looks like they might make it 3 wide here off turn before if it gets big enough to run.
Dalton Cowden's done a good job of working his way through the field here on this run, but you saw him get really loose on the inside line off of turn number 4. It seems like he's starting to go the wrong direction, though. Maybe have worn those tires out with his charge to the front and falling victim to drivers that may have been able to preserve their good years. Sean Butler now trying to look to the inside, can't get there off of turn number 2. Bankari has to tuck in line behind Nate Stewart, and all of a sudden what was 3 battles of side-by-side singled out down the back straightaway.
Yeah, very easy to do, and obviously these Xfinity cars have a lot of horsepower, a lot of throttle response, and it's very easy to just jump on the gas a little bit too early, racing around guys and trying to get that position, and obviously, like you mentioned, you can easily single file everybody out and kind of scare some people even behind them. So these guys definitely doing a great job though of maintaining these tires over the course of the run and not getting at least sideways enough to be wrecking, but definitely on the back of the edge right now. They're not holding anything back. Oh, almost a contact right there.
Cowden really loose off of turn 2 again, almost up into the left front quarter panel of Sean Butler. We have had another driver recently come down pit lane and make the hard left turn to the garage area, that being Justin Malello. Right now he is being scored in the 28th position. There are drivers on pit road getting damage repaired that might have enough time. Maybe a couple of them. Adam Sweet might be able to pick up a position on him. I don't think Robert Dorman or Jonathan Oates are going to have enough time. And just to kind of update there on Jonathan Oates, the points leader coming into this race as far as the playoff standings, I mean, it doesn't look like he's going to fall out of the top 2 in the points here tonight, but it's certainly going to be a big opportunity for drivers like Nathan Rapido, Jake Poole, and Gary Waterwood to at least have him within striking distance with Belle Isle and Martinsville on the horizon.
Yeah, just a quick update on Justin Malello. Looks like, unfortunately, he actually lost internet connection, so it wasn't of his undoing. So, obviously, really unfortunate for him here late stages of the race, and that'll probably take him out of any chance of having a decent finish here tonight. But Tyler Gary's still leading up here. Running that high side, he's migrating up to the top side and trying to run, up there and get gain some speed. And I'm assuming, based off that, he's probably going to come down pit road here fairly soon, since he's kind of tearing his tires up. Not too worried about them at the moment, just to kind of gain a bit of an advantage before he comes down pit road here.
Right on board here with Ocean Walsh, I think was running about the highest I've seen a driver in turns 1 and 2. We're going to watch him through this corner. Watch how he's actually up above that last set of hash marks before the safer barrier. I watch these guys, I watch them in NASCAR, how they're able to run right up there against the wall. They know just how much throttle to be able to put in to make sure they don't overstep that cushion, get into the outside safer barrier. I mean, how as a driver do you discipline yourself to do that? Is it something that is easier than it looks, or is it something you really have to work at as Jordan Worth hitting pit road so the green flag pit stop cycles begin?
Yeah, no, it's definitely the most challenging things I think you could probably do as a driver. Obviously, guys who have the most experience at, and especially in dirt racing or other forms like that, you see in real life, obviously, like I mentioned, Kyle Larson, those guys with dirt backgrounds just know exactly how to do it and have that throttle control. But it's easily one of the hardest things to do, and I would say this is one of the most difficult racetracks. There's a few bumps up there that can kind of throw you off guard and definitely mess your lineup, and it's all about experience. It's definitely not something you can kind of do and just transition during the middle of a race and jump up there without ever doing it before. You'll knock the fence then quite a few times, and I can say that from experience. So it's definitely it's a really fun thing to learn and to kind of understand. And once you get it, it's kind of difficult to lose it, but it's definitely a challenge to overcome to initially learn it for sure.
Jordan Worth and Sean Butler beginning the cycle of pit stops, this time by Zach Hudson and Zachary Thornton having onto pit lane. So obviously the fuel window is open for these drivers to be able to make it the rest of the way. Looks like the race leader has his hand out the window. He's coming down this time.
Yeah, about 25 laps to go here in the run. Definitely makes sense. These guys might be Zwack, little faster. Come on the pit road. May have been speeding. It's interesting to see when he gets to his pit box if he had a penalty there, but he's doing about 60 on the pit road, and I believe it's about 20 or 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. So not sure, but that would be a huge costly mistake out of him if he is caught speeding.
Gary also looked a little bit fast, and it looks like Hudson and Thornton, they've been hit by the speeding police. They're still sitting in their pit stalls. This looks like both of them are going to have to serve that 30-second penalty of waiting until they are released. So a valuable track position and time being lost for them. We're going to be updating about Gary and Zwack. Gary is good to go. Zwack is
not.
He got caught. Oh, man.
That is really unfortunate.
That's the top two in points that have hit issues here at Kansas. Maybe, just to be fair, the one track I looked at on the playoff schedule as a place that they might be able to, if anything, secure themselves a spot in the playoffs. It's actually proved to be the most treacherous one and maybe the biggest point shaker in the playoff standings to date.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Just obviously, trying a little too much out of pit road, and like I mentioned earlier, that transition can definitely hurt you. Your tires kind of come up off the ground, and
Stewart spinning it around there on pit road entry, and now the four's got some damage on the nose.
Oh. Yeah, like I mentioned, just really slick coming on pit road right there. A lot of guys getting a little more out of it, and usually you see guys caught speeding. It looks like Nate Stewart was about to get caught speeding and locked it up, wheel hops, like I mentioned earlier, and unfortunately, it looks like he managed to stay off the inside wall, but obviously really costly right there. Lose a lot of time.
Walsh has been running really high here on the racetrack. I think he may have brushed the wall off of turn 4. That allows Will Klein to close in on him in a battle for second place, but both these drivers still yet to come down pit lane for their final stop of the day. Malello, you see there, returning back to the server. He's currently scored 28th, 9 laps down to the race leaders. Stewart did get it woed down in time. He did not get a penalty. David Cabrera, Lucas Plesso, Alex Kolonix, they've made their pit stops. We're now waiting on 13 drivers to complete this cycle of pit stops here. Heading towards the checkered flag, Jordan Worth in the 92 has leapfrogged Tyler Gary. About a second and a half between the two. As things stand right now, he would be the one out in front when everything finally cycles. So that call to come down pit road earlier than others might pan out in Jordan Worth getting his first win of his Grand National Series career. Yeah,
really interesting kind of split strategies here. We saw Malik Ray running that second or third there, I believe, before the pit cycle started, and he's still out there currently leading the race right now. So definitely interesting that some of these guys are choosing to stay out longer. Maybe they feel like they saved the tires better in that first half of the run, but Tyler Gary, I believe, came down just a little after halfway through the run. So it's really intriguing that some of these other guys are figuring they need to go a little bit longer. Not sure if they're trying to catch a caution or gambling on that. But this is obviously, like I mentioned earlier, the most easy time to catch a caution is when these guys are kind of pit in the middle of the field or out there in old tires. And some guys dropped a lap down, so it's going to be interesting to see how well this plays out in the green.
Tidwell, our winner from Talladega, and playoff contender Gary Waterworth, they came down, complete their pit stop of the day. Like at this point in time, of the drivers we haven't already documented, everybody has been able to complete their pit stop and they have not received a speeding penalty. Andy Margot, lap machine now coming down pit road. Robert Dorman came down pit lane. He's actually got an extended stay in his stall, many laps down in the 46 machine. So only 11 drivers left, and you saw Jordan Worth make the pass on Malik Ray. That was to unlap himself for it. So a very important pass. If we were to get ourselves a caution at this point in time, he wouldn't have to rely on a lucky dog. He wouldn't have to rely on a wave around, which means when all these other drivers would have to come to pit road under caution, he could stay out and he would cycle around as the race leader.
Well, I might have just found a reason why some of these guys are setting all the tires to go on board with Will Klein right here. Currently in the second position, still is yet to pit. He's actually clutching it and coasting all the way through the start of the corner. So some of these guys obviously must believe they're close on fuel, and this might be a big game changer for Kyle Garrett and all those guys who just came down pit road.
Walsh coming down pit lane, giving up the third position. If you're Will Klein, are you planning on trying to stretch this thing all the way to the end, not even to come to pit road at all?
Yeah, I must assume he's clutching it pretty heavily to the center of the corner and doing a good job of not really losing much time. I don't hear Malik Ray doing that, so I'm not sure if he feels like he might be safe all the way, or if he's just expecting to come down pit road here late to get tires and fuel. But Will Klein running the bottom of the racetrack, trying to save as much fuel as possible, and he clutches it before he even gets down into the corner. So definitely doing a nice job of saving fuel right now. And they went green on about lap 45, so that's about a 55 lap run. That's a pretty long run right there for these guys to make it a one tank of fuel. But obviously they must know they're pretty close in order to be committed to this strategy.
Will Klein is a driver running for Grand National Series points. I'm going to have to double check on that and see where exactly he is positioned in the point standings, but this could be a huge call for the driver of the 48. And with that being said, you got to wonder if Malik Ray is aware of the situation and what his strategy is now, knowing that the 048 could possibly be thinking about making it the rest of the way. Whoop, we just had ourselves a very important pass. That was for 11th because Tyler Gary just went back around Jordan Worth. So now he is in the catbird seat. If the 10 drivers ahead of him have to come to pit road, he would cycle back out to the front.
Yeah, just like Las Vegas when Matthew's back and all those guys pulled that short pit strategy, unfortunately for Jordan Worth. Doesn't look like it'll pay off, at least for the win at the moment, or provisional win, I should say, over Tyler Gary. It's still currently in that spot right behind him in 12th place. Big gap out behind him. It should be good for the guys who are on tires, but obviously, like you mentioned earlier, the tire wear here is pretty crazy. So that makes it even more surprising to me that these guys up front, like Will Klein, are trying to make it all the rest of the way on fuel. And obviously, they're going to have to save a decent amount of fuel. Will Klein's still out there clutching and coasting every single corner. And Tyler Garrett already kind of running these guys down now under 25 seconds and gaining every single lap.
Watching the battle here for 6th and 7th, but these two still yet to come to pit lane. Dalton Cowden in the 117, Andrew Schwartz in the 67, also Nathan Rabideau there in the 93. These guys playing the long strategy, seeing if maybe they can get lucky and catch a caution. And just to update on Will Klein, he is not a full-time Grand National Series driver, is not a points-paying driver in the series. Has made 4 starts this season so far. His last start was at Las Vegas, where he brought it home P3.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just looking to improve a little bit on that tonight, and it's still interesting to me that Malik Ray, he's out there still on those 4 old tires and turning laps, currently in the race lead. But it doesn't seem like he's really making any effort to save fuel, at least from what I could tell listening to his engine tone. So that's really intriguing to me if he's just out here trying to catch a caution with about 10 laps to go this time by, or if he feels like he's completely comfortable on making, which I'd have to assume he wouldn't be able to since he's not saving at the moment, and 55 lap run is a pretty extended run like I mentioned earlier. But Will Klein still doing a nice job. He actually just knocked the fence down off turn number 4.
It's going to allow Matthew Zwack on by. He's Zwack 2 laps down after he was hit with a speeding penalty and kind of stopped the bleeding, if you will, between himself and Nathan Rabideau. I almost wonder if maybe this is why Rabideau stayed out. Or if he was aware of the fact that Zwack got hit with a speeding penalty. Remember, those two were only separated by 13 points for that second spot in the overall standings. So that might have actually played into Rabideau's strategy of staying out, trying to see if he can either stretch it to the end or maybe catch himself a quick yellow. And maybe, just maybe, I mean, obviously we'll have to see where everybody ends up finishing, but I think that Nathan Rabideau would, by 1 point, be up inside of the top 2 in the standings, leaving here today if he holds where he is and Matthew Zwack does not gain any more positions.
Yeah, definitely gambling here, trying to capitalize, like I mentioned, on those points over Matthew Zwack. And if it pays off for him here and he catches a caution, or if he could somehow make it on fuel, that'd be huge for him. But kind of going through the field, Cosman looks like he's saving fuel in P9 right at the moment, but I'm expecting him to probably get caught here by Talgary with just 9 laps to go. He's only about 7 seconds behind him, and obviously in those 4 fresh tires, he's going to run down pretty quickly. But to my surprise, the only guy I can really hear above Cosman that's currently clutching and trying to save fuel is Will Klein in second position. So it's going to be really exciting here. Last 9 laps here to see, or 8 laps now, excuse me, if these guys can actually make it the rest of the way on fuel or not.
You kind of wonder, are they clutching and saving fuel to make it to the caution, or are they clutching and saving fuel to be able to make it the rest of the way? Malik Ray cannot make it on fuel. You just saw him in front of the 048 duck onto pit road.
Looked like he took the commitment cone now right there, too. I would assume that's probably going to be a penalty for him. Unfortunately, just barely caught up with the right rear real well, and that'll probably be a penalty for him. But even if it isn't, obviously, you know, that commitment to stay out there in those other tires kind of made his bed, and now he has to lie in it, and definitely going to lose a lot of time on the rest of these guys. So unfortunately for him, he was run second before the pit cycle started.
And this is huge right now because look at some of these names. Brent Pancari in 3rd, Andrew Schwartz in 4th, Nathan Rabideau in 6th, Jake Poulin in 7th. These guys are just trying to be the highest Grand National Series points-paying driver. If they are in the finishing results, they are locked into the season finale at Atlanta. And to your point, it looks like Malik Ray did get the penalty, realized that his chance of winning this race was over, and he is out with 5.5 to go. Justin Terpstra as well as Chris Wetz are also back in the garage area after the last 10 laps.
Gary Waterworth right there came off of turn number 2, about knocked the outside wall down, and Nate Stewart looks like now he's going to try to get around the outside of him for the 15th position as those guys continue to battle. Currently a lap down with Will Klein still out there on his run, I should say, and has not pulled down pit road yet. So a lot of these guys, that's a good point too. You know, if we do catch a caution here, a lot of these guys are going to be forced to have to take the wave around and stay out in those old tires. So this might definitely work out in Will Klein's favor if he does catch a caution. And like you mentioned, you know, maybe he can't make it to the end. Definitely going to be trying to save it to a caution flag if he's lucky enough to catch one. But comes off turn number 4 this time by. He's going to have 4 laps to go and has a pretty good lead here. Definitely a good cushion over Talgary, the first guy who pitted about 17 seconds. So if he needs to back off even more to save and make it to the end, he might very well be able to do so. So it's going to be pretty intense here in the last few laps.
The battle for the win is definitely going to be good, but this is going to be the battle. It's going to have the huge replications of a driver possibly getting that golden ticket into the season finale with a chance of hoisting the championship trophy. You're looking at Brent Pancari in 3rd. He is right now the highest Grand National Series points-paying driver. Andrew Schwartz, that green 67 behind him in 4th place. These two, if one of them finishes in 3rd, they are going to Atlanta. This is going to be the battle for the final 3 laps because there's a championship on the line.
Yeah, without a doubt. Now just 3 laps to go. Going to be really aggressive, and all of these lap cars are trying to get themselves around local line as well to make sure they don't get trapped lap down in case a late caution comes out here. And these guys shuffling all over the racetrack. There might be a pretty good high chance of one coming out. So 3 wide behind Will Klein at the moment. As Parker White actually in 2nd place there just knocked the fence down in turn number 3, but he still has yet to pit with coming up 2 laps to go this time by. It's really intriguing to see if these guys can make it.
Saw there Gary Waterworth nearly losing in front of Kalanick's Nate Stewart and Parker White. That certainly could have possibly brought out a caution, but he hangs on to it. Parker White currently in 2nd place, running for cup points. Same for Will Klein. That's why that battle for 3rd is so important, and it's 0.8 of a second separating them. Will Klein would love to see that white flag wave before seeing a caution come out. He's only 2 corners away. Can we get back to the white flag? It looks like that's going to be the case. Will Klein looking to see if he can pick up his first win of his Grand National Series career here at FTF.
Those playoff drivers, as you mentioned, battling for 3rd. It looks like Andrew Schwartz is a couple tenths faster a lap, but it's all going to come down to who can make it here. We're going to see some guys probably run out of fuel here and give up their tank position, obviously, in this last lap. So currently in battle for the third position right there, as you said, locking themselves in. And Will Klein, as he goes down the back straightaway here for the final time, looks through 3 to 4. He'll probably make it to the checkered here, no problem.
Will Klein has got about 1.8 seconds, 1.9 now, back to Parker White. He could coast from there. Will Klein's going to capture the TBA 99 here at Kansas. Parker White's going to cross in second. Let's follow the battle for third back to the line. Brent Pancari will officially be the first driver locked into the FTF Grand National Series playoffs at Atlanta with a third place run here tonight at Kansas. Finishes half a second ahead of Andrew Schwartz.
Really impressive job for him right there. All those guys obviously committed to that strategy of staying out and hoping they can make it on fuel. And like I mentioned earlier, I was kind of surprised a lot more of these guys weren't really seemed like they were clutching it to make it. And somehow, some way, they all managed to make it. Definitely probably knew that from the start of that run, and it all definitely paid off for them. So Brent Pancari, absolute capitalization right there of circumstances in this race.
Kari, one of only 4 Grand National Series drivers that's going to have a win this season. At this point in time, winning Talladega, Poulin winning Daytona, Jonathan Oates and Nate Stewart were the other 2 Grand National Series drivers. And there you see Pancari doing the burnouts there, because even though Will Klein gets the victory here tonight, Pancari gets the air quotes unofficial win as a Grand National Series driver, and he will be battling for a championship. I mean, Kansas, no doubt, kind of turning the entire playoff scenario on its head with the fact that Pancari is locked in when we had the first 3 races where nobody was locked in. The top 2 in the point standings, Matthew Zwack going to finish 20th and Oates back in 31st. I mean, all of a sudden, we've got some very interesting stories lined up for Detroit, Belle Isle, and Martinsville of all places.
Yeah, who knew the race out of all 3 of Talladega and the Roval and Kansas, so the most shakeup in the playoff standings would be Kansas for sure. That definitely was probably the unexpected wild card race, and like you mentioned, Detroit and Martinsville the next 2 weeks, so we might see that shift a little bit over to those 2 races, but definitely a huge shakeup here tonight. And Will Klein, obviously not racing for that playoff spot as you mentioned, but picked up his win here tonight at Kansas in pretty smart fashion.
His 5th start in the season and his first checkered flag. Parker White with a great performance. He started, actually these 2 drivers, the top 2, started back in 25th and 24th. Pancari going to finish in 3rd to lock himself into the championship battle in 3 weeks' time. Andrew Schwartz also started back in the 26th position. As a matter of fact, 4 of our top 5 started outside of the top 20. Dalton Cowden started back in 30th, so tremendous job by these guys taking the rather lack of starting track position and making the best of it here tonight. Nathan Rabideau is going to be 6th. He could very well be up in a top 2 position in points after tonight. Jake Poulin may have raced his way back into the picture with 7th. Tyler Gary and Jordan Worth with the fresh tires were able to work their way back up to 8th and 9th, and Sean Butler is going to complete the top 10, but I'm going to be very interested, Lucas, to see about some of these guys being able to stretch the fuel, being able to make the max points, take advantage of the speeding penalty of Zwack, the hard luck with the wreck by Jonathan Oates. I don't know exactly what the number is for these guys, but I think we could see maybe 5-6 drivers within 20 points of each other with a chance of leaving Belle Isle next week up inside of the top 2 in points.
Yeah, without a doubt, definitely some of those costly mistakes that are very, very easy to kind of put yourself into, and even some bad luck there for Jonathan Oates and other guys like that who got involved in some accidents here tonight. Definitely, like you mentioned, a huge shakeup, but it's going to close that gap for sure heading into next week.
And you got to wonder what the relief level is for Brett Pancari now, because he can go into Belle Isle, he can go into Martinsville, those crazy wild card races where anything can happen, and he can just ride. Doesn't have to win. He doesn't have to finish up inside the top 10. He could just go out there and log laps, because he knows no matter what happens to him in the next 2 weeks, he is going to be in the championship picture when we get to Atlanta. And let's find out just how much relief this guy is experiencing, because we're about to talk with him now. Brett, Lucas, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I got you guys.
Man, I mean, we could see the elation with the burnout there on the front straightaway, the realization that you are now locked into the championship battle when we get to Atlanta in 3 weeks' time. I mean, how much of a load off your mind is this for you, especially with the fact that we've got tracks coming up in the next couple of weeks like Belle Isle and Martinsville?
Actually, the burnout was more for the fact I got a 3rd place finish. I refuse to acknowledge this playoff stuff, like, because I never liked chases and playoffs in real life, and the last like top 5 I had, I think, was my win at Talladega way back when, and for the strategy to play out and having the tires to get a third after having such an up and down season, it's just great. I wasn't thinking about playoffs or chases at all, because if it's like just regular points, I shouldn't even be anywhere close to a title chase. But I will gladly take this third.
Talk about the fuel strategy. I mean, we were kind of surprised seeing some drivers start to clutch and save to try and make it to the end. We weren't certain if they were trying to save to make it to a late race caution or if they were saving to make it the rest of the way. Only a handful of drivers, including yourself, playing that strategy. I mean, just how much were you dealing with an ill-handling race car, though, the longer that run went on, and just how close were you of not making it?
Well, I topped off twice before we got the one to go on that last caution, and I think I had, about 5 laps at the end of the race. So I kind of was trying to think in my head when we had the first long run before the first caution came out. I was kind of thinking like I can go over 50 laps, give or take on fuel. So I figured take the gamble, top off, and hope that it went green the rest of the way. And my tires were starting to fade on me in the right front right at the end there, and I thought Andrew was going to run me down, but no, everything just worked out for Will, Parker, and myself. And like I said, just that fuel mileage, like just right at the point where I figured it was time to go for it and top off, and luckily it just worked out.
Well, congratulations on a job well done on that strategy. P3 here tonight at the Kansas Speedway, and be battling for that championship in 3 weeks' time. Brent, we're going to now turn the mic over to you for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Well, firstly, just thank everyone, Justin Malone, Kyle Riley, Jake Poole, and everyone in the FTF league for allowing me in here this season. And of course, Barr Visuals for the sponsor of this series. I also got to say thanks to Patricio Esteban at Daco Designs. He was the originator of the Princess Daisy cars. I had this weird dream one night that I was racing on iRacing in a Princess Daisy caution, which I do have with me. And I think I might now bust it out for the season finale in Atlanta. I was gonna bust it for Halloween weekend, but now with season finale, I think getting bumped up, or one of these getting bumped up, I think I'll just wait to the season finale and bust it out then. But yeah, just thanks again to Patricio, and also I guess Corey Rutherford at I think CRX or CJRX Graphics. He's kind of carrying on the tradition of the Princess Daisy cars, and thank both of them for their incredible work. And thank you guys at FRN for I can't talk right now, for broadcasting these races, and just also want to say hello to everyone at Helene Photovoltaic Modules, solar company. We make solar panels up here in Northern Ontario, Sault Ste. Marie, and we also have one in Mountain Iron, Minnesota, and we're just getting a third plant, I think, being built in Florida. So if you want some solar panels, contact Helene Photovoltaic Modules and tell them that Brett Bancari sent you.
Well, bro, I'll just have to let you know, if you put that Princess Daisy costume on, I don't think these cars are equipped with red shells or banana peels, so it's not going to give you an advantage on that. But, man, congratulations, though, on a great performance here tonight and pulling off some incredible strategy. And, of course, as mentioned as well, putting yourself right there in the thing with the first driver to lock themselves into the championship battle at Atlanta. So congratulations on that. Rest easy tonight, knowing that you don't have to worry about Belle Isle and Martinsville in the next 2 weeks. And we look forward to seeing what you're able to do with the championship on the line when we end up eventually getting to Atlanta.
Well, like I said, I still refuse to acknowledge the playoffs and all that, but I'll take this and run. Thanks.
That's Brent Pancari, your third place finisher here tonight. He started this race from the 10th position and only had to pick up 7 spots from the start to the finish of the race. Let's talk to a guy that had to pass 22 machines, didn't even lay down a lap time in qualifying, and that's Parker White. Parker, Lucas, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh man, I mean, we were seeing a lot of drivers kind of playing the strategy with fuel, and we were noticing the interval between you and Will Klein. It was getting eaten away little by little, lap after lap. Do you think if you had enough laps, you could have reeled him in on the long run speed, or was it just too close on fuel for you to be able to go at 100%?
I was fine on fuel. If we would have had maybe 10 laps, I might have got him. He told me that he hit the wall, and that's why he lost so much time. And I wasn't sure if he was just trying to save some fuel last minute, or if he just knew that he had a big enough interval to me to just back off and not have to worry about like blowing a tire or something. Even though, because he told me he took tires there on that last pit stop when we topped off. But my tires were completely fine at the end. They're still a little bit low on percentage, but I could have put way more laps on them. Um, it was just I was trying to save tires there on the end of that or the beginning of that last run there. I did a pretty good job of that, just wrapping the bottom, keeping them tires nice and cold. Then eventually, with around 20 to go, I started to move up to the high side and start passing more people. And I always had in my mind that Will would be the one that would cycle out to the lead, because I knew no one else could make it on fuel, except that the people that pit with me. And I think the biggest mistake that I made was just coming back in under that caution to top off, because I had plenty of fuel at the end, so I probably should have just came in once, topped off, and then called it good. Maybe even taken tires, because that's what got Will the win, and that's off of raw speed too, because Will's a really good driver. And I was in the mindset that I'd be able to catch Will again just by saving tires, but I didn't know at the time that he took tires, so I was just gonna run my own race after that because I looked at the interval between him and I, and it was like 4 seconds, and I'm like, well, I let this one go. So uh, after that, I was like, I'll just race for second, and that'd be a pretty solid finish. I'm not in the points battle or anything, so I'm just kind of here for wins. But yeah, that was a really good race. Just strategy. Just it was a really slick track too, so that was a lot of fun having to wheel the car around. But yeah, just a really solid race overall for me.
Yeah, and we saw you have to wheel the car around from pretty close to the rear of the field. Saw that you were really fast in practice. We're really surprised that you didn't put a lap time down. Started back in 24th, and we saw a lot of drivers migrate to the top or migrate to the bottom, searching for that clean air to the nose. Just how difficult was it to work your way through the field here tonight?
Well, at the start, everyone was just kind of taking it nice and easy. Uh, they kind of knew that the bottom saved tires, so they were all just wrapping the bottom, and I was kind of going a bit faster than they were, just not sliding the tires, but not necessarily just completely hard saving. So uh, I was just slowly working my way through the field, and then once we were getting a bit longer to that run, I moved up the track to the high side and got runs on people. So then I think I got up almost inside the top 10 before we got our first caution. So I just kept doing that throughout the race.
A great performance for you here tonight. Second place after starting deep in the field. Able to make it on fuel there as well. Congratulations there, Parker, on a solid outing here at Kansas. And now we're going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Yeah, I just got to thank you guys at Flatout Racing Network for all the broadcasts, all the admins at FTF for allowing us to race here and having all these good races. I'd also like to thank North Force Racing, SRD, and Stemman Studios.
That's Parker White. He's your runner-up finisher here this evening at Kansas. Congratulations once again, and best of luck here. We got only a handful of races left to finish out the season, so looking forward to seeing if maybe you can pick up a win at one of those.
All right, thank you, Seth.
All right, let's go down to Victory Lane. Fifth start in the season. First trip to Victory Lane for Will Klein. Will, it's Lucas and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us? We'll give it another try here. Will, it's guys up in the FRM booth. You got us? We're having a little bit of trouble here. Getting in touch with tonight's race winner. They have stepped away. Actually, let's see. We are understand he is there, just having some audio problems, so we will definitely wait for him.
All right.
There we
Are we
go.
good?
We've got him. We are good. I mean, Will, obviously we were talking just moments ago with Parker White, another driver that had to work his way from the back to the front. I don't think we really even mentioned your name until about halfway through this race, and then all of a sudden you were picking up spots, moving up to the front. Then we saw you pulling the fuel strategy there to be able to pick up this victory. I mean, tremendous job being able to work from the back to the front here this evening. But It just kind of seemed like the strategy fell into your hands, but a lot of heavy clutching, according to what Lucas said. I mean, were you really that close, or were you just having a little bit of insurance in case we ended up having some late race yellows and some overtimes?
Well, I had 6 extra laps. I don't know. I clutched just to get in a rhythm, just to not make sure I used up too much. I probably saved too much, and then, like an idiot, I went and tank slapped the wall and almost cost myself the win, and Park almost got me. But uh, yeah, if there was a late yellow there, I definitely wouldn't have stayed out. I would have been a sitting duck. But yeah, I was being really conservative.
Now, we ended up seeing a lot of drivers on fresh tires making the way around you. You obviously were fully committed to trying to make it to the end of the race with what you had on that last green flag run. I mean, is it more difficult to work your way forward passing cars that you know you're faster than, or is it more difficult to have the older tires and try and stay out of the way of the fresher tires running you down trying to get their laps back?
Um, the second part, depending on the person, it's definitely harder passing people that don't want to give it up. And there's there's definitely people that do that, and it gets a little annoying. And then that factor in dirty air, and you're in for a nice time.
Now, another thing that we were talking about was, when you go up there and you hit the outside wall, you mentioned that you made some contact with your machine. Uh, do you feel that for the remainder of the race, or are these cars that durable that it really doesn't affect the race car for the remainder? It obviously brushes off some momentum, but does it affect how it handles in the corner after that?
Oh, these cars are paper mache. As soon as I hit that, I was down on the straightaway. Because even with the tires, which even my tires in pretty good shape for how old they were, I lost about a tenth every straightaway. And it's funny, it's just you hit the wall with the Xfinity car, and it's like you're immediately losing speed. So that's you got to keep it out of the wall if you want to win these.
He had a great run the last time we were at a mile and a half, third place at Las Vegas. Tonight, the victory at Kansas Speedway. Congratulations on that. And now we're going to turn the mic over to you for some Victory Lane. Thank you, sponsors and shoutouts.
Thank you to the FTF admins, sponsors of the races, you guys for broadcasting, people for watching, and I think that'll be it for tonight. Thank you.
That's Will Klein. He's the winner here this evening. Got to burn it down at the Kansas Speedway. Congratulations once again, Will, on a job well done. A tremendous execution of strategy. Go enjoy this victory.
All right. See you guys later.
Standings are in, and man, it is close. We know that Pancari is already locked into the championship battle when we get to Atlanta in 3 weeks' time. But Jonathan Oates, he's still the points leader. 4 points over now Nathan Rabideau, so he is now up inside the top two. If he can maintain that for the next 2 weeks, he'll be battling for a championship. And Matthew Zwack, who fell outside of the top two, he's only 1 point out of that second position. So right now, looks like 3 drivers could be battling for those 2 point your way in spots with 2 races left.
Yeah, really impressed right there that Jonathan Oates was able to hold on to that after obviously the unfortunate luck he had tonight and getting out in the outside wall and ended up towards the back here tonight in the running order. But definitely, like you mentioned, really tight battle there all the way through the rest of the field for those playoff positions. And heading into Detroit next week, it's obviously going to, not really entirely sure what to expect except for chaos. Obviously, as you mentioned in the broadcast tonight, really close quarters, really bumpy surface, and the stock cars like these Xfinity cars, these guys are going to be out there on a tight street course. It should be producing really exciting action.
Definitely. And of course, as well, for all those other drivers, looking at guys like Poulin and Waterworth, Butler, Nate Stewart. I mean, these guys, they're currently sitting anywhere from 30 to 40 points behind that second in the standings cut line. They're kind of still in the win and you're in situation. They don't have to go out to Belle Isle. They don't have to go out to Martinsville and be P1. A P3, a P4, a P5 could lock them in as long as they are the highest of the Grand National Series points paying drivers. And so, if you're any of those guys heading into a track like Belle Isle next week, do you see being a road course, that type of a track, playing out fuel strategy in similarity to what we saw here tonight?
I'd probably have to assume not, but obviously I'm not entirely sure how the caution situation will be there. But if they have a comp caution or anything like that, it definitely could play into their hands. And I'm sure a lot of those guys, with how technical that racetrack is, they'll probably end up getting laps before the practice session even goes up, especially those guys on that playoff bubble. So I'm sure they'll definitely have all those numbers figured out before they get into the race and try to see if anything will help them get themselves into that window. But definitely is going to be an interesting race, and it's going to be very easy for guys to kind of accidentally get into each other or even get into the wall and tear the car up pretty easily and take themselves out even earlier in the event. So that definitely should be interesting, and we'll just have to see how it plays out.
Well, we've seen them run some very interesting road courses this season. Road Atlanta, Spa, Circuit of the Americas, Mount Panorama, of course, the Tsukuba Nationals. Detroit Belle Isle going to be the last road course on the stop for these guys, and it could very well play just as much of a factor into who's going to make it into that championship battle at Atlanta as Kansas did here tonight. But Will Klein is your victor. Brent Pancari is the first driver officially locked into the championship battle in the season finale. Lucas, it's been a good one here tonight. Appreciate me. English, how does it work?
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, I wait until the end to have a stroke. But appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Absolutely, Seth. Always a pleasure.
Thanks to everyone that tuned in tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage. Hope that you join us next week as we continue on the playoffs here for the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals at Detroit Belle Isle. Green flag next Saturday night, scheduled to fly at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For Lucas Cram, I'm Seth Cole. We'll see you guys next week as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.